read. The Special Investigating Unit has blocked the bank accounts of 14 entities linked to the Gauteng Department of Education school decontamination tenders. The SIU has discovered that 173 service providers used were not accredited and were not on the central supplier database. Now, the unit will launch review proceedings for an order to compel the service providers to provide the service providers to pay back that money. Let's now get reaction from DA Gauteng MEC for Education, Khume Ramulifho, who joins me now. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. Are you at all surprised by what the SIU's findings have revealed?
Not at all. It has been a DA's view that the 431 million has not been used for what they claim it was used for. Because if we look at what the MEC has indicated when he initially set up the plans for opening of the school, he set aside a budget of 15,000 per school, plus over and above 15,000 was the bid vest free services. So if you look at that, it tells you that the plan for each school, if you look at all Gauteng schools, which are about 2,300, that you should not even spend more than 30 million rand. So 431 million was just used for corruption. That is what the DA is believing. And we believe that this money needs to be recovered and then repurposed and used for something which is beneficial for both learners and teachers.
What do you believe were some of the red flags leading up to this investigation?
The DA, when we heard the rumors that the department is using money for decontamination of schools, we have actually raised it, and I recall told the MEC, and MEC asked the head of department, and the head of department even sent a response back and saying it's not correct that the department is spending money on decontamination of schools. The money which was spent is the 15,000 with which the MEC has indicated. So we said there are rumors that by the time when we raised this, it was about 100 million rand which has been spent. And they were denying, and they said, no, the money which the department has committed for was for PPEs, which include, sanitizer, mask for learners. And then they told us that that money was actually used through the Department of Health. So Department of Education has not committed even a single cent directly to procure any PPE-related things. So we said there are rumors, but then because this money which they spent was not necessarily directly from the budget as we can do our oversight on, it was like considered as a sundries budget. So it was easy for the department officials to use this money as they wish because we could not play an oversight role over that amount of money. So, but we said this is probably correct, and obviously we're proven right that whatever we've been raising was correct. And we believe department officials were corrupt and they were involved in all these wrongdoings. And that's why we believe that, we're making a call now that MEC Lesofie must suspend the head of department, chief financial officer, and the chief director of supply chain management, because we believe that they oversee all these wrongdoings. And for them to be held accountable, we believe, based on the information which SIU has provided, that they deserve to be suspended while investigation is continuing, so that we can recover all the money which has been spent for the contamination of schools when it's not necessarily the case. We played an oversight role where we visited schools, because you'll remember the time when, after the lockdown, when we were making a call for learners to go back and teachers, there were sort of, some views that schools are not safe. And we said we want to be sure that indeed learners are not just going back when schools are not safe. And part of what we have visited was to ensure that all schools were cleaned and defogged, as much as we didn't have much information around that time. But we were, given assurance that, decontamination of schools, all schools, the budget of 15,000 was given to all schools, and free services was rendered from bid vest. And we were satisfied that indeed that was done. So we were surprised when we hear about 431 million which has been used to do the same job which was spent, which was allocated 15,000 each per school. So that's why we believe that this money needs to be recovered and repurposed to eradicate asbestos schools, to replace mobile schools, and also looking at deteriorating school infrastructure. Because if we can have that amount of money can be recovered, so we believe that it will be able to assist us to ensure that learning and teaching conditions are conducive.
As you make calls for MEC Panyaza Lesufi to make some sort of call to action and suspend the people you feel need to be suspended, especially looking at those managing the finances of the department, what do you then believe are the loopholes and your concerns when it comes to the the supply chain management division of the GDE?
I think I believe that the officials have taken advantage that, when we're under lockdown, all of us were worried about the safety of all of us, including learners and teachers, and we were trying to observe the regulation as set out by the president and the health department. While we were doing that, some of them were busy looting. So they took advantage that while we were so concerned about COVID-19 challenges, they took, advantage that no one is actually overseeing what we are doing. So we're saying, for the sake of transparency and accountability, we need to take action against those people who thought by us, while we were observing the protocols to ensure that, we respect the rules of the country, they were taking advantage of us doing that, and then they find it as an opportunity for them to loot. But we're saying now, because things are open, they need to show us how did they arrive to a situation where they handpicked certain service providers, for what reason and for what benefits. And we believe that if they are suspended, and the investigation also go to them, so that it's not only for those companies who benefited. So we believe that they should not only, they will not have done that only to benefit either friends or companies they know. They too, they should have benefited from, whatever wrongdoings they have done, because they took advantage of us when we're observing health protocol to ensure that, we respect what government has been saying. But they took advantage of all South Africans by actually, going and loot the resources which were supposed to be benefiting the same South African which they are employed to serve. So that's why we believe now that if they get suspended and then SIU continue the investigation, and should they be found guilty, we believe that they need to be removed from the department.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time and reaction there coming from Khume Ramulifho, the DA Gauteng Shadow MEC for Education, giving us some response there to what the SIU has uncovered, now moving to freezing assets worth more than 40 million rand of Gauteng companies that were contracted for school fumigations. Now, the ANC